right, I'm going to go ahead and share screen again. We are now going to dive into level two funding. And so to introduce a level 2 fund, I am going to be walking you through a county RFP. Now, typically, from what I've seen, the county level RFPs range anywhere from, I've seen as low as $2,500. I just put $5,000 up to $150,000. Again, this is generalized. Some RFPs are for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Some of the common RFPs are the Nonprofit Grant in Aid or the Vai grant program that the window for that just closed, and the county R&D innovation grants. Again, I've linked in some of the hot links of where you would be able to find more information about those grants. But what I wanted to walk you through as we go through the county level grant is in this section of the webinar, what I'd really like to focus on is how you begin to identify those key components that are required. Now, again, Farah in her webinar next week is going to be focused all on the narrative and developing that narrative. And oftentimes we think that grant writing is just about the narrative, but more often than not, proposals are disqualified because, what's happening? Proposals are disqualified before a reader even gets to reading the narrative, because the required documents are incomplete or not submitted at all. And so that's the very important step that I want to be able to walk through with the county nonprofit grant in aid as an example. And so when I'm going through an RFP of this level, where there's a lot of required documents and attachments and steps you need to do in addition to just writing the narrative and the proposal, I like to start a sheet like this to be sure that I am not going to get disqualified for something as basic as not turning something in. So it just starts with the grant title, pretty self-explanatory. I would write Vai grant program. I would include a link to an RFP because I want to be able to quickly find it when I am trying to verify. Okay, obviously I have to do this. Okay, so the very first page of this RFP looks like a letter and looks like something that you can just not pay attention to because it's not bulleted out, because the things that you have to pay attention to are not necessarily in bold. And again, just be sure as you're going through an RFP that you really set aside time to read thoroughly. And so what is embedded in this letter on the first page is this sentence that I've highlighted. Be aware that you will be required to enroll with Hawaii Compliance Express and be compliant prior to receiving any payment. To register, complete the easy step-by-step process and pay the annual registration fee online using a credit card. So this is a very important step here. The second thing that's embedded in this first page in the letter is the deadline. So I'm going to be putting over here the deadline to submit, Monday, January 31 at 4:30. You can submit online. You can also submit in person. Absolutely no extensions. Okay, that's what I'm getting from the first page. The next part in page 5 on this document, the notice to applicants. I've read through this and I highlighted again, you will be required to enroll in Hawaii Compliance Express and be compliant. So it's more than just registering. The part of the registration process and that process, there's several different things that need to be included or uploaded: your IRS standing, your tax filing, your registration with DCCA. So being sure that you've allocated enough time to do this is a very important step. You'll be required to provide and maintain a current general liability insurance certificate of $1 million general liability and $50,000 for each occurrence, specifically listing the County of Hawaii as an additional insured before receiving your first payment. So again, things that you may have to take to your board and have your board be aware of. So paying attention to these kinds of things. And then, of course, the process of actually reaching out to your insurance person and listing the county. So those are some steps that you would have to be paying attention to. The next page, what I've highlighted here as I was reading through, August 31, 2022 is the anticipated award date. This is important for me to be paying attention to. Again, what I mentioned earlier, I might have a project that needs funding before then. And so that might be a factor in me deciding whether or not I'm going to be submitting my application. Scrolling down in the application instructions, you want to be sure of the policies and how many proposals they're accepting. Sometimes they only accept one, sometimes funders accept multiple proposals. That's things to pay attention to. Again, thinking through your capacity, how many proposals you're going to be submitting. And then I've highlighted down here, do not email the county your application form, submit it through the URL. What they've provided here, because you're submitting through an online form, they've provided an outline of every field that you would need to complete as you're going through the form. So you can have that information prepared ahead of time and hopefully just copy and paste it in. I'm not going to go through this in detail because this is the kind of thing that Farah will be covering. But then I do want to point out as we get into this area of program budget, this section right here that says you will need to upload a completed budget, and this very, very important piece. Please name your budget file in the following way. Organization name dash program dash budget. So oftentimes there are folks that will be very, very picky. And if you do not follow their directions and label your attachments exactly how they are telling you to do it, you could get disqualified. So paying attention to those kinds of things, how they want your file to be labeled is very important. The next piece that I wanted to call out and highlight is these documents that are needed. So the organization conflict disclosure form. And then be sure that it is complete and signed. So being sure to double check for signature. The certificate of understanding. Again, check for signature. And we're getting to the end of their 23-page RFP. We're going to have to turn in the grant application, the conflict disclosure form, the certification of understanding. And why would I want to be creating a checklist like this is not only to be sure that all of the documents that are required to be uploaded, that I'm aware, but that I can start to have those conversations with other people on the team. It is not always that the person who's writing the grant or going through the RFP has access to these different documents. It might be your fiscal person. It might mean reaching out to a board member to do things like getting registered for the different things online. And so not only listing it out, but being able to say who is taking the lead on this, who is it being assigned to, what is their deadline, and then having a link to that completed document or to the file, so that when it's time to upload, you're not having to search all over the place or go through emails and find attachments and all of that. It should all be put into one. I like to use Google file. And then as I'm uploading my narrative and all my attachments, everything is in one place and I know exactly where to go to upload it. I highly do not recommend waiting to the last minute to do any kind of submission, because websites crash and things happen. But if you're ever in a pinch, all of these things help to make sure that once you get inside and you start uploading things, that everything can just go smoothly. So on their second to the last page of the RFP, they've listed out additional required material that you're going to have to upload. And so again, I would just start copying each one of those document titles in here. If there's notes that I need to make, like we need to have the board vote on a specific thing and then have it referenced in our documents. We need to update our bylaws to say that the executive director has the ability to sign and enter into contracts, things like that, those little nuanced things that maybe are referenced in the RFP. And as you're going through your documents, you see that it's not aligning or there's things missing. You want to put all of that into your notes so that you can follow up on it and make sure that things are being done by the different members of the team in a timely manner.